says that 4 people are now being considered. One of them is retired Lieutenant General Keith Kellogg. Another possibility is former CIA director and retired General David Petraeus. And I want to discuss this and more with Congressman Adam Kinzinger of Illinois. He is a U.S. Air Force veteran, and he serves on the House Foreign Affairs Committee. Congressman, thank you so much for bringing kind of these 2 areas of expertise to this conversation, because the idea that you have a military man like Harward, where service is so obviously important, serving the country, serving the president, that he turned down President Trump on this job offer. What does that say to you, as some people are saying maybe this is a part of a vote of no confidence in a way?
Well, it's really hard to tell. You know, you have the words from the friend, and then you have the words from Harwood himself, who said, look, it's a time and family commitment issue. So we don't really know why. I think there's no doubt that after the departure of Flynn and everything that led up to that, the NSC is in a little bit of chaos. And so I think it's incumbent on the administration now and the president to get somebody that can step in there, find out where, you know, where leaks are coming from, where dysfunction's happening, but also get the NSC together, because this is a very important function for the President of the United States. So hopefully we'll see some positive changes here pretty soon.
When you hear someone say it's a time and family issue, I mean, if I can make sort of an analogy, it's that being asked and saying, I can't, I'm washing my hair, right? I mean, this is sort of double speak for, I would be surprised by that, but that's a very funny. Is that how you read this, that this is just, there's really some other reason, like what his friend would have said?
I don't want to confirm that that's the case, because obviously I just don't know. That was, truthfully, that was a little bit of my suspicion. So you look at, again, with the departure of Flynn, the questions that happened there. I think even Flynn's discussion itself with the Russians was improper, but not necessarily illegal. But it was everything that followed after that, the cover-up and everything else, and the questions that we have and we're finding out answers to. So I wouldn't be surprised if the general said, hey, look, I'm in a position right now, I may not be the best person to step into a bit of a chaotic situation and handle this. Or it literally could be he's got family stuff and he's just like, it's not my time.
Okay, but what about this idea that part of it is you have a number of Flynn acolytes who are still in the White House? He came in, and it's not as if Flynn came in by himself. He brought in this apparatus around him. Do you think that that needs to be cleaned out? Do you need to clean house in order to really get someone to come in as the new national security advisor?
I don't think you necessarily need to. I don't know all the people in that apparatus, and so I think, you know, Flynn may have put very good people around him, and I think you have to evaluate that on a case-by-case basis. You know, what we've seen, frankly, from a foreign policy action out of this administration as a Republican, I've been very happy with in terms of pushing back against Iran and everything else. The question is, within that inner structure, there seems to have been a little bit of chaos related to Flynn, and so it's time to take a deep breath, find the best person to lead that. And the general just said, hey, that's not me. For whatever reason, he said, hey, that's not me. And we're on to the next one.
Who are you interested in when you hear these names being floated? Is there a certain person that you think would make a good national security advisor?
I think all the names I've heard, the general you mentioned, I don't know extremely well. All the names I've heard, though, from what I understand about him, are good. David Petraeus, obviously he had his issues in the past, but there's nobody that understands military matters and matters of military and state combined, frankly, like he does. Military can't act in a vacuum. The Department of State can't act without the military backing it. And so somebody that understands both those functions with the intelligence experience he has, I think would be very good. But it's a question up to, you know, whether the president wants him or anybody else. There are a lot of good names out there, and I sure hope he and expect that he'll pick somebody good.
Law enforcement officials are telling CNN that Flynn changed his original story to FBI agents after first saying he didn't talk about the sanctions. You've said the cover-up is worse than the crime. I think you mean sort of, quote, crime. Do you mean actual crime? Do you think that there is perhaps a criminal thing that has happened here?
Well, it's hard for me to evaluate. So there's the issue of Logan Act, and there's the issue of, you know, should Flynn have talked to the Russian ambassador when an administration who was president at the time, President Obama, was figuring out sanctions? I think it was highly improper and maybe a violation of the Logan Act. What came after, though, lying to the FBI, lying to, potentially, you know, from what we hear, being dishonest with President Pence, that part of the cover-up seemed to be the issue that really took him down. I think had he come out early and said, I did, look, the ambassador brought it up, I brought it up, people may be upset. I would have been upset about that, but I wouldn't have called for a resignation.
Okay, but what do you think when you're looking, and you're someone who sort of, I think, you take a balanced look often at your party, and we're seeing this has to do, obviously, with Hillary Clinton's server. You've heard, for instance, Jason Chaffetz announcing he wants criminal charges brought against a former Clinton aide who set up her private email server. We haven't heard anything about, when we're looking at what happened here at Flynn, which you have said previously was arguably questionably a crime.
Right.
Are Republicans using a double standard here?
Well, I hope not. And so my hope is, see, I'm an American before I'm a Republican. I'm a Republican because I happen to believe the things the Republican Party believes, but I'm a Republican or an American first. So in my view, I think all this stuff needs to be looked at in totality. You have some people calling for special commissions, 9/11 type commissions. I wouldn't go that far. That makes it a partisan issue. I think in the intel committees, these folks can look at all the information in secure settings, do it in a bipartisan way, and we get to the bottom of Flynn and everything else. The American people want it and deserve it, and I think it's the right thing to do for our country.
I want to read you a tweet from an outspoken Russian lawmaker, and he writes, Trump hopes to make a deal with Russia. Mattis thinks in vain that he can put pressure from a position of strength. Tillerson is playing a second carry, 3 lines from one administration. What do you make of this? And if there really are these 3 lines, which is the one that prevails, or is this a collaborative effort, you hope?
Look, I think this is actually a collaborative effort with the administration. Now, where the confusion comes is, like in the president's press conference when he says things about Russia and all that, and that's confusing to me too. But the administration, frankly, has had a very solid message of it's one thing to engage Russians and have conversations. We're not against that. But we also can't look past the fact that they occupy Crimea, indiscriminately bomb innocents in Syria, killed, 500,000 in backing the regime that's done that. And so I think, with Nikki Haley at the UN saying sanctions are going to remain in place, with General Mattis stressing the importance of NATO, the message coming out of the administration, except in these press conferences, is actually very good.
Those press conferences are key, though, as you know, of course, Congressman. Perhaps the most important word is the one, or not perhaps, the most important word is the one coming from the president himself.
Absolutely.
Congressman Adam Kinzinger, thank you so much for your time. And I want to tell you what you're looking at on your screen is